Hey folks, it's Andy Tyndall. The show hasn't started just yet, but I want to thank you for tuning in. I also want to ask you what you would do if you were the first. Maybe the first in your family to graduate from college or graduate from high school and go on to college. Or maybe you're the first of your friends to start a business or do something else that's really cool. The thing is, our guest today is uniquely qualified to talk about being the first. Richard Brown III is the first African-American master PGA professional. You may be thinking to yourself, Andy, I don't play golf. I'm not interested in golf. Well, Richard's story is not a story about golf. It's a story about making it when so many other voices were telling you that you shouldn't. His story just happens to have a backdrop that is golf. As we listen to his story, I want you to think about how you would handle the responsibility of being the first. Hope you enjoy. Hey folks, welcome to the Human Side of Greatness podcast. I'm your host, Andy Tyndall. Today's story is just an amazing, amazing story about perseverance that starts back in 1961. Well, not in terms of our guest, but going from 1934 to 1961, the Professional Golf Association had a clause in it. That clause was a whites-only clause or a Caucasian-only clause. So, which meant that if a golfer wanted to go pro, they had to be white. If a golfer wanted to play professionally, they could only be white. The irony of this story today is our guest, coming from Oakland, California, now working in Missouri City, Texas, is the first African-American master PGA professional in teaching and curriculum. This guest is perennially a top U.S. kids golf teacher, dating back to 2015. And he spends his days running the Richard Brown School of Golf. Today, folks, we want to welcome to the show Richard Brown III. Hey, Richard.
Hey, how's it going, Andy? Thank you very much for the nice introduction.
My pleasure. Thank you for being on the show and just giving, again, this story about perseverance, excellence, and passion is what we're really looking forward to hear from you today. And with every show, we start off with some questions. I know you're an athlete, but you're definitely a teacher. And as a teacher or educator, reading's a big thing. What's your favorite thing to read? Books, magazines, or something off the internet?
I would say a combination of all. Because for me, the quest and the thirst for learning will never end. I always tell individuals I will never reach the pinnacle as relates to the mountain for education. So if I can find something in a book, if I see something on the internet, if I see something that's a gadget that's going to help me be able to get my message across in the shape, fashion, and form that's going to help the student learn, then I'm all for it. So I try to be a sponge, to be honest with you, as relates to information relating to the sport that I'm in and also just in life.
Awesome. So from that standpoint, second question, when you're playing golf, you get done with your first 9 and you are at the turn. What do you get to eat? Hot dog, hamburger, or peanuts?
It's definitely going to be peanuts or an energy bar or probably a banana or an apple, because I'm looking either to sustain a level of energy. And I know that if I eat something that's high in protein, it's going to basically dull the senses, for lack of a better term. Okay. And with that, I'm not going to be as focused. So with that, I'm more the individual that will take a banana for a long burn. If I feel that my energy is starting to wane a little bit, then I will go ahead and scarf down an apple. And I'm definitely a huge individual that drinks a lot of water. So I'm always trying to stay hydrated. And I do that early in the morning when I wake up, either 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning when we're starting the grind, especially in the summertime. But that's pretty much the mode of menu for me as it relates to when I make the turn. It's been it's interesting because you bring that up, because I haven't really played a full 18 holes either in a casual play since probably when I went to Myrtle Beach a couple of years ago. I'd probably say 3 years ago, when the last time I played 18.
Okay.
I try to play 3 or 4 holes in the evening when I get done teaching, either with students or by myself as catharsis, to be able to work on my own game. But that's pretty much what the mode is right now.
Awesome. So for the folks who are listening to the podcast or viewing it via video, you are a golf instructor. How long have you been doing that? Tell us about your school, tell us about your program and your philosophy.
I have been teaching since 1986. And with that, my philosophy, it's well-traveled. I started in the Bay Area, Oakland, California area, San Francisco Bay Area, then moved to Los Angeles and worked down in the Woodland Hills area for a couple of years, then moved to Nashville, Tennessee, spent some time down there at Forest Crossings Golf Club, and then spent 12 years in the New Jersey section.
Yeah.
And then the last 10 years here in Houston, South Texas. And with that, I've been blessed to, at the facility I'm at right now, Quail Valley Golf Course, to run a junior golf academy / Richard Brown School of Golf. And that for the better portion of 7.5, 8 years, I was doing 7 days a week, trying to give instruction to those juniors who are looking to get better at the game, to where they had an opportunity to either playing high school golf or those really trying to move to the next level playing college golf.
Okay.
And also been blessed to have some individuals try to go on professional tours. And then with that, working with adults, either the new beginners or intermediate or even advanced players. So that's pretty much what I was doing before probably the July of 2018. And then I became a full-time faculty member for the PGA of America.
So living in two worlds, essentially.
Yes, sir.
Connected by the sport of golf and the love of golf.
Connected by the sport of golf, yes.
Awesome. So if someone wants to get a hold of you or to track you down or contact you, do you have a website, Instagram, Facebook, anything like that?
Yes. The easiest way to catch me would be on my website, would be the richardbrownschoolofgolf.com. I'm also on business Facebook and business Twitter and Instagram also, but I don't have those tag names connected to memory, but everything is on the website. So they can go there. They can see my biography, my teaching philosophy, the program offerings, and also how to contact me.
Fantastic. So from the standpoint of getting started in the early days, I know you mentioned you're from Oakland, California. What or who was it that really got you going with golf? Because that's not something very, very common coming up in those days.
No, you're right. It is very uncommon, to be honest with you. Back in the mid 70s, I loved baseball, and I was the irony of the story was I was stealing second base, and the catcher threw the ball and he hit me in the ankle as I'm stealing second base. Oh, broke my ankle. So with that, once the ankle healed, the doctor said I needed to walk for rehab because the muscles weren't as strong. And there's a guy in the neighborhood who said, "Hey, I go play golf at this little golf course, this little 9-hole municipal." And I'm like, "Nah, I don't do that. I play baseball." So he says, "Well, you need to walk anyway, because why don't you just come with us? And you never know. If it worst case scenario, you'll walk and you'll get better." Okay, that's fine. So I let the first hole pass, and they played, and they said there's no interest to me. I was like, I don't know how much longer I can take this. And I got to about the third hole. I said, "Well, do you mind if I try it?" And I took a swing naturally, like everyone else, and it was a par 3, so a little 9-hole par 3. And the first swing I missed naturally, and so then I'm like, okay, I'm an athlete. I'm not supposed to miss this ball. And the next swing I hit it, and just the pure sound and the adrenaline rush of making contact with the ball, I was instantly hooked. Now, I still continue to play other sports, but I found that my passion lied in trying to be the best person that I can be. And after a while, I just lived, breathed, ate, slept golf. And with that, within a short amount of time, I became very accomplished, to where I was able to play in my high school team. And then once I got out of high school, had a scholarship to go to Grambling State University. But there's a little side story that I had the opportunity of being the first minority to play golf at Stanford.
What?
Yes, I had before Tiger. I had that opportunity in late 70s, because I graduated in high school in 1977. But at that particular point in time, education really wasn't on my radar. I was too busy either playing golf or cutting class or doing other things. And I missed out because I didn't have the ACT SAT scores. So with that now, I use that as fuel to let my other athletes know that you need to be a well-rounded individual, not necessarily an individual that's really good at golf. You need to understand that colleges and universities are looking for well-rounded athletes, and they're looking to be, are you an individual that can represent their brand, be it Stanford, Duke, Texas, University of Michigan, regardless. So I'm telling them now, I want you to utilize every opportunity at your disposal to become the best student that you can be, the best person that you can be, because athletes are a dime a dozen. Regardless of the sport, we are a dime a dozen. And so thusly, I had to learn it the hard way that you're looking for, and universities looking for individuals that can represent them through the long term. So I preach that now when I'm working with my youngsters, that learn from my mistakes to where you don't have to say if I woulda, coulda, or shoulda. Now you have the opportunity of changing the narrative, you being in control.
So that's a fantastic, holistic way to approach coaching for anyone who comes your way. Just simply amazing from that standpoint. Side question though, what spot did you play on the baseball team?
I played outfield. I love center field.
Dude, I was a center fielder too.
I just love the action. I love being able to get to the gaps, and I had a pretty good arm. I didn't hit for power. I was definitely a single/double person, but I had the speed to go run balls down, and that's what I loved. I love that. So it's once again, it's that challenge. So I never knew that spot about you. That's amazing. So missed out for Stanford, but definitely pushed forward with Grambling State. Yes.
And was that where it took off?
Yes, that's where the opportunity landed me. And it's very interesting because at that particular point in time in the mid 70s, there was another school down the road called Louisiana Tech, and both state-run schools. And this is a God's honest truth. When I was there as a freshman, Grambling State University had no street lights and no paved roads.
Are you kidding me?
No, sir, I'm not kidding you.
Wow.
So, and then 5 miles down the road, Louisiana Tech had all of the intricacies. They had all of the latest technology as it relates to either athletics or just education. Yeah. But when the rubber met the road, as it relates to doing some comparisons, we were far and away superior. And our motto is everybody is somebody. And so with that, I learned it became very intuitive as it relates to self and what I needed to do to become a better individual, and left that West Coast mentality behind, where now I had to learn things the hard way, and understanding that education is key, because you get a really good dose of reality when you see individuals coming from a rural part of the United States to where they are the first individual within their family to have a continued education. We're talking about just getting through high school, much less even having a college education. And the emphasis that is placed upon you and everyone there as relates to the staff of education is key, where everybody is somebody. And with that, the quest for, or the thirst for learning really took off for me.
So was that the general sense of the entire team of golfers that you went to school with, or was that just you?
That's the entire student body.
Get out of here. Wow. Okay.
And then with that, from an athletic standpoint, that we stayed in one dorm and the football players stayed in an adjoining dorm, and Coach Robinson would come through the dormitories at 6 o'clock in the morning every single day, ringing a cowbell saying we had to go to breakfast and check in. So he really stressed the education piece. He stressed us being good individuals, because once again, we were representing Grambling State University. Even though unbeknownst to us, he was molding us into really good citizens and men by showing us dedication, showing us a sense of routine. And then with that, if we missed breakfast, we couldn't have training table. If we missed class, without a legitimate excuse, we we were held accountable for that.
Yeah.
So he wanted to make sure the graduation weight was where it needed to be. And with that, that's where it was. Very high.
Sounds like it's pretty high. Yeah, sounds like it's pretty high.
Yes, sir.
So with that coach, was he, or would you consider him as part of your foundation for your career in coaching?
He would be, yes, Coach Robinson was definitely part of the bedrock as relates to coaching, even though it was different sports.
Yeah.
How you have to communicate to others is important, because even though my medium now is golf, it's really about establishing, forming, fostering relationships. And the only way that can do that is understand who the audience is, and making sure you can have some form of connection. Because golf to me is really widgets. It's how can you form that bond with that individual to make sure that you are able to give them what they need within that short amount of time, be it 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, or however long your session is going to be.
Pulling the best out of each individual.
Yes. And then asking probably the first question that I ask is, how is the best way that you're able to get information? Are you more visual learner? Are you auditory? You tactile? You kinesthetic? Because if I'm able to find out up front what is your easiest way of learning, then that literally for me makes my job much easier.
Yeah, it's
much easier.
Makes it way easier. So
yes,
Grambling. What happens after Grambling? What do you go on from there?
Well, played golf at Grambling, and then I went back to Oakland, California, and I graduated in 1982, and I wanted to pursue a touring professional life. And with that, I found out very early on that I didn't have the financial resources to be able to do that. And I still had a thirst for learning. I was playing golf literally 7 days a week. I lived, like I said, I stayed at the golf course. And my first instructor, which basically sparked my interest of becoming a PGA professional, his name was Mr. Bob Johnson, black man from Georgia, okay, who unfortunately suffered through that period, that Jim Crow period through the PGA, where he wasn't able to gain membership. And he was a very religious individual and a very spiritual. And he basically, it's kind of hard to talk about it, but he basically gave me everything. He spent his waking time with me, teaching me on how to play and how to be a teacher. And probably 6 months into this ordeal, I asked Mr. Johnson, I said, Mr. Johnson, I feel that I owe you something. And I kept asking him this. And he says, you know something, I'm tired of you asking. And here's what your bill is. He told me what I'm giving you is not yours to keep. When you find individuals that are worthy, you pass it on, and your debt will be paid until you are no more. And at the time, I really didn't understand what he was saying, but it hit me when I was living in Los Angeles at Woodland Hills, working as an assistant at Woodland Hills Country Club, that all the life stories that he gave me of being blackballed and having a difficult time being able to teach and being able to make a living. And it hit me. And from that point forward, I just went ballistic as related to my education and my willingness to be a member of the PGA of America. And he and others, Lucius Bateman, that was back in Oakland, California, used to give lessons also. And it was just amazing looking at the Ted Rhodes of the world. I played his golf course in Nashville, Tennessee, and the Bill Spillers and all of the people that were so instrumental in my development to become a black man in a white man's sport. So it's amazing to talk about. It's somewhat sad, even though in the year 2020 that we're still having to have these discussions.
Yeah, definitely.
But to me, they are relevant and pertinent, and I believe that they need to be expressed.
So you mentioned Bill Spiller, pivotal person as it relates to African Americans or people of color, I should say, being able to go to the highest levels in golf. Can you touch on his story just a little bit so the listeners can understand the importance of this man as well as Ted Rhodes?
Wow. You're talking about individuals back in the 30s and the 40s and maybe the 50s in their prime that were able to rival the Ben Hogans of the world, the Byron Nelsons of the world, the Gene Saracens of the world, and they were not given the opportunity to be able to let the world, or really the nation, see their talents. And by the time they were gained or able to have admittance into the sport, it was past their prime.
Past their prime.
So what was the point? And so, but then they played the Chitlin circuits, and they played the other circuits from the NGA or the UGA.
UGA.
They played in other events, and they let their talents be known, but really not at the pinnacle of where they could have been.
So intriguing that at that time, those guys, Bill Spiller, first off, to bring that case against the PGA when he did, to really force their hand to acknowledge and accept folks that were non-white at the time, to get things going. And then to see this thing come full circle, to have, 58 years later, 58 years later, right? To have 58 years later, to have the first African-American master PGA Professional as part of that organization is just mind-blowing to me and to so many others that will probably hear your story. What about getting on tour and kind of like doing what they were doing? Did that ever come to your mind or become a goal for you?
Oh, it did. But then early on, as I stated, I really didn't have the financial backing or really the talent, to be honest with you, to play at that level. Yeah. So I matriculated more towards the club side and the teaching side. And because my mother was in education and she taught preschool during the day and adult ed maybe twice a week during the evenings. And unbeknownst to myself, as I'm sitting there in the back of the room because I'm mad because she drugged me to these classes, that she literally was preparing me on how to be not necessarily a teacher, but more of an educator. I think there's distinctions between a coach, a teacher, and an educator. Yep. So with that, she really taught me how to be able to, and then once again, unbeknownst to me, how to be able to interact with people to get to where they can really see a different side of their abilities, mm-hmm. and be able to, and I guess this is where really good mentors come in. I want to be with that individual as they're taking one step forward into the limelight. I'm taking 2 steps backwards.
So you really don't want the spotlight at all as a coach, is what you're telling me? No,
because really all I'm doing is just bringing out the skill and the mastery of that individual. And thusly, I should not get any accolades for that, which kind of leads me into the first African-American being a master PGA professional. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to be the best that I can be. And as I'm going through the whole particular process, with an individual who was in the room with me was saying, if you continue the way you're going right now, you're going to be in rarefied air. I'm like, yeah, that's going to be great. I could be a master PGA professional. He says, no, you don't understand it yet. You don't have a clue. Continue and complete the process. And then I'll tell you once you get done what you have done or the significance of this feat right here. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I got done with the hour presentation, and I got done with the 45-minute/hour Q&A. And then I went and had to perform a live lesson for half an hour, and they come back and they vote. And they said, congratulations, you are a master PGA professional. And it hit me. And then this person's name is Bill Sheffiletti, and he's on the education staff with me now. He says, you are the first African-American to be a master PGA professional. And my jaw just hit the floor, because that program has been in existence since 1969. And I know that there are other minorities, other Black PGA professionals that are far better than me and have been in the association longer. And I thought that someone had broken that barrier before. But come to find out, I'm the first.
You're the first.
I was the first. And then with that, our director comes in and says, would you mind being an adjunct for the PGA of America? So now the hair on my arms go up and tears start to come in my eyes, because now it's an opportunity for me to give back. And for those like the Ted Rhodes and the Bill Spillers and Mr. Bob Johnson and others who didn't have that opportunity to gain membership, Now you want me to represent the association as it relates to education? I said, yeah, I'm all for it. And then as that went on for about 6 months, a position popped up in the education department. And to me, it was meant to be. And the doors opened from the adjunct position and the faculty position based upon the fact of being a master PGA professional. And I firmly believe also, because the association is trying to be diverse and inclusive. Yeah. Since I was the first, then they felt it was probably a nice segue or a bridgeway to be able to have me be on the education department or faculty. So I understand my role. I really do.
So you're rarefied air, like you said. Can you paint a picture for the listeners in terms of the numbers that put you in that rarefied air, in terms of the numbers of PGA professionals that are out there today and how many actually attain that certification?
Right now in the association, there are roughly 29,000 members. We're not talking about those that have retired and passed on. There's probably a greater number. Okay. Within that active 29,000, there are roughly 400, a little over 400 master PGA professionals. And with that, there are two of us, myself and Mr. Anthony Stepney, are the only two African Americans that are master PGA professionals.
Man, so if I do some quick math, that puts you in the 1%.
In the less than 1%, yes.
Less than 1%.
Yeah.
Magnificent. Thank you. So this is never an easy road. So I'm thinking in the back of my head, wow. Big achievements, lots of humility. When in your career does adversity show up? Because you don't get this far in a journey without some adversity walking and making it its way in front of you.
Like any person of color, adversity strikes even before you get into the professional ranks. And whatever your profession is, adversity for me was, I hate to say this, but I'm going to be honest with you, is catching it from both sides of the spectrum. Back when I was in high school.
What do you mean?
When you're playing you're hearing it from your own kind that you're a sellout, you're Uncle Tom, because you're not playing one of the big three, or you're not excelling at the big three. And then from the folks that are not of color by saying you're not good enough to be able to play here. What are you doing here? We don't allow your kind to play in country clubs. We don't allow your kind to play in these tournaments. And I've had tournaments taken away from me because of my color. Even though I've flat out won them, they were taken away from me because of who I am. I played golf in the Deep South, and then, like I said, in the mid to late 70s, and you had signs and people basically, I don't like to use the term "N," but It was, you go home, you don't belong here. And there's some stories I can't tell you because I don't know the audience who's going to be listening to this, to the podcast, but there were some pretty interesting things that have happened to me as it relates to my golf game. And you talk about adversity. So for me, adversity has been something I've been dealing with ever since I've been walking this journey as it relates to golf, and also being a black man playing the sport.
So from blacks growing up, high school, whatever it may be, they looked at you as some sort of sellout because you're playing a sport that usually takes about 4 hours to complete. It takes a high degree of technicality to execute it. It's not just brute force. And you were excelling. So they called you a sellout. That doesn't even add up to me.
You name it. And even back in the mid 70s, it really was in vogue, but there were still a lot of African Americans playing on tour. There was roughly close to either 15 or 20 at that time that were playing on tour, where now you may have probably 4, maybe 3. So, and also because of you just had 3 networks. You had probably ABC, CBS, and then NBC. Yeah. there wasn't any exposure. There wasn't exposure, and everything that you were taught about or told was negative until I really started to play. And then you look at all the blacks that were at the golf course, but they were older. These were individuals that helped me become a better player because they showed me the ropes of what I had to deal with within our own race, and then also how to deal with the adversity outside, the pressures outside. So how to be able to deal with the, like I said, that litmus test. Yeah. How can you excel in an environment that's not hostile, but you find that it's difficult, very difficult.
Mentally, was there a place that you would go to in your mind to put on some sort of armor or just to fortify yourself as you're getting all these different things, ideas, opinions that were negative coming at you?
I would just say for me, it was just staying humble and hungry.
Wow.
Humble and hungry. I that's the only way that I could counter it. And then if I got into a situation where I had to play, then I would play to the best of my ability. And I always have that imaginary or that unforeseen chip on my shoulder as it relates to the education that I've received, where I'm going, how I'm trying to be the best PGA professional, the best person that I can be. Yeah. We talked about before, never getting to the pinnacle or the mountaintop, but the one thing they can't take away from you is knowledge and integrity.
There you go.
They can strip everything else away from me, but they can't take that from me.
So, man, just such a powerful story. For me, you mentioned faith early in our discussion. What role does your Creator play in your ultimate success?
I guess I'm more spiritual now, because at first I would question why do I have this ability? Why do I have this ability to play? Why do I have this ability to teach? Yeah. Why do I have to go down this road that is less traveled versus another road that is more of the norm? I would question it and I would fight it. And at times I tried to literally get out of what I'm doing now, but I'd always found myself being pulled back in.
So you're saying the game kept on pulling you back in?
Either that or individuals that were put in my path to be able to help guide me because I wasn't able to see the forest for the trees because I was too close to it.
Gotcha.
To where they said, you have a gift, and with that, you need to be able to let the world see what that is. And I was just too naive to understand that, or too young, or just really too, I'm not going to say arrogant. I'm just going to probably, the appropriate term would be ignorant to what I have to be able to show individuals. Whereas now I embrace it and I call myself a bridge builder. And I build the bridge, not necessarily for myself, I'm building the bridge for others, because now I understand what my role is. My role is to have individuals go far and surpass what I have done. And I want that to happen. I want someone to be able to say that I was probably a role model for them, not necessarily a mentor, because I don't know who is maybe looking at this or maybe hearing this, but maybe sparking some interest for them to say, hey, this is maybe an avenue that I can go down and really be successful at. So if I can do anything with the remaining time that I have left, I want to be able to, once again, foster those relationships, develop those relationships to where I can take someone by the hand, build that bridge for them and say, okay, you have to walk that bridge now. And you have to walk across that to get to the other side. And you have to understand that, yes, when you get to the other side, I'm still going to be there. Yeah. I'm maybe a little bit in the distance, but it's your time now to move forward.
So question in terms of something you said. You mentioned all these different people are placed in your life as guides, so to speak, to get you either back on track or push you forward, whatever the case may be. What does the name Ray Chester represent for you?
Oh my goodness. Wow. Raymond Chester owned the pro shop at Lake Chabot Golf Course in Oakland, California. And when I came home from school, I was broke. I didn't have a job. And I went to the golf course and I asked Ray, I said, Ray, I'm home from school and I really don't have any means to support myself. And would you mind giving me a job in the pro shop or picking balls on the range or maybe re-gripping clubs or re-whipping clubs? Because back then the woods were woods. And Raymond told me, no, I'm not going to give you a job.
So this guy was just like a boss, or was he your friend, or like how would you categorize him?
He was, well, Raymond was at that particular point in time, he was retired from playing NFL. He played football for the Oakland Raiders and the Baltimore Colts as a tight end. Passionate about golf. And he was the owner of the pro shop. The golf course was owned by the city. It was municipally owned. Yep. But he had the pro shop, and within there, he hired others, and I wanted to get a job to be able to hopefully sustain myself. And he says, no. And I said, well, Ray, why? I need a job. He says, you don't belong here anymore.
What do you mean? Like you didn't belong here anymore?
What the shock of it, he says, you're better than this now. You don't belong here. You need to go find your way in the world. We will always be here. But the one thing that I'm not going to do is give you this opportunity so where you can become complacent and not do what you are tasked to do. Now, you're talking to a person who's 23 years old, who really doesn't have any debt, but you don't want to basically amass debt. You want to do something. And your friend, your mentor at the time tells you, I'm not going to give you a job. That is shocking. And I mean, it was hurtful at the time. And then I naturally had to go out and do other things. But I look back in hindsight now, and he was 100% correct. And I go back there, and I've gone back there a couple of times, and I look around and I see where I've come from, my humble beginnings. And I said, okay, Ray, that makes sense. It really does make sense. And hopefully before my time and his time is up, I would love to see him again and thank him for not giving me that job. Mm-hmm. And even if I played golf with he and Jack Tatum just about every single day, but I understand it. And I have to say, if you're listening, Ray, thank you very much.
So here's just a follow up to what you just said. So back then when he said no, he gave you a no. Did that feel like a kick in the back at that point in time?
It felt like a knife in the stomach.
Wow.
It didn't feel like a kick in the back because it's like you go to someone with your heart in your hands and say, hey, I have nothing. Because my dream or my aspiration of becoming a tour professional is contingent upon money, and I have none. Others who were supposed to be able to put some money together to help me get to where I want to go, that fell through. So now I have to develop a contingency plan. Yeah. And that was pretty much plan B. And I said, okay, I said to myself, if worst case scenario, I can get a job at the pro shop and I can basically check people in. That's great. Maybe get some lessons and just play all the time versus being a vagabond, just resting on my laurels and just getting everything handed to me because I know eventually someone's going to pull that away from me. But if I'm able to support myself, then at least you have those privileges. And then when he said no, and that really shot my plan B. Now I have to really come up with a different contingency plan because now my contingency is no longer there. So now what do I do?
So what'd you do to pivot? How'd you pivot? What'd you do?
Well, I started hustling for money, started playing a lot of golf for money. And then I had a fraternity brother who had some connections at Lockheed Missiles and Space Company. So I worked for them for a little bit. And I felt like a caged animal because I worked for basically as a subsidiary of the Department of Defense. And yep. You're in cipher lock building all day and you don't see the sunshine, and that this wasn't me.
Not for you.
And it wasn't for me. And then I tried insurance for a little while, and that didn't work. It's like, no. And my father said, if you love something, you will find a way to make it your passion and make it work. And once again, he was right. So there you have it.
So passion, you just mentioned the word. How important is that word for you and what you do for the students that you coach every day and the folks that you will be kind of giving instructions to going forward? What does that word mean for you?
Passion is, I guess, a mantra for me. I want individuals to understand that when they take a lesson from me, or if I'm teaching a seminar, or if I'm mentoring an individual, I want them to be able to hear the passion in my voice, as far as I want them to get to where they want to go. I want to be or a part of the equation that helps them be able to find whatever their greatness is, or whatever their goal is going to be. I just want to be a small component of that, and giving them the opportunity, or maybe giving them the requisite skills to help them either matriculate or hit a different shot, or maybe look at things a little bit differently as it relates to their game, or even their personality, of how they can be a better person. So I want them to see it outwardly if they're within my presence, or I want them to be able to hear it, either if it's through the meeting we're on now, or even on the telephone. Yep. I want them to hear it genuinely, that I want their success to be realized.
So that's just a great way to frame up that word. And you use the word great or greatness. And so this is the Human Side of Greatness podcast. So in all walks of life, from time to time, we will see some miraculous works take place by the Creator. My question to you, what, in your opinion, does the human side of greatness look like, in your opinion?
What does it look like, in my opinion?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, the human side of greatness, to me, doesn't have color. It really doesn't. It's going to have more of content and character. Is an individual going to produce what they say they're going to produce in the time that they say they're going to produce it in? Integrity. Are they able to stand up for what's right when others won't stand up? Are they going to be willing to take that extra amount of time to be able to help someone who may be down or on their last leg, and give them an opportunity? Or give them something, maybe not necessarily funds, but give them motivation to be able to help them to get to where they want to go.
Okay.
And to me, not being afraid of their success, not being envious or jealous of someone else's success, but sit back and just relish with the fact of that person is able to get to where they want to go. And I might have a small little piece of that. And if they recognize it, that's fine. And if they don't, that's okay too.
I love that perspective that you bring to the table there with that particular question. So for my own knowledge here, I want to know, always kind of been in the back of my head to ask you this: who's your favorite modern day coach today? Outside of any sport, whatever it might be, favorite modern day coach?
Modern day. Well, he's not modern day, but to me, John Wooden.
Oh yeah. Oof.
John Wooden.
Yeah.
Far and away. Because, and I've met individuals and coaches in other sports that are like him, where he coaches their athletes very hard in practice. He has a standard that is so high that when they play a game, they're playing for fun, because now all their hard work has been done. All the preparatory work, everything that leads up to that actual activity, he's covered all the contingencies. He's looked at all the variables, and he's mastered these things, and he has ingrained his athletes to where now you flip the switch and you are prepared, and now you can go out and you can perform with fun, and perform with no reason to think. You want to be unconscious because you've gone through all of the repetition and the motor skills in practice. So John Wooden, for me, would be the quintessential, the coach for me.
He makes the top. He makes the top of your list right there. Boom. Okay.
Oh, yes. He is the list.
Love it. He is the list. one name on the list. John Wooden.
One lane. And everyone else after that would be subsets of that. But he is the man far and away, the coach.
Love it. Love it. Great choice. Great choice. So, we're kind of getting down to the end of our time here together. And, at the back end of the show, one of the final things I always want to see if our guest has a simple quote or a motto or some words that they live by, so our listeners can really partake in that part of your knowledge base as well. So anything like that you have, some a quote or a motto that you live by?
Yes. And once again, stay humble and hungry. I'm always trying to strive for excellence, and I'm never trying to settle. I'm always trying to move forward, and as it relates to definitely knowledge, that's another point of my mantra is going to be, I will never reach the pinnacle, never reach the top, and that's okay. But I really am enjoying the journey, moving up the mountain as it relates to knowledge and learning. Awesome.
Mr. Richard Brown III, can't thank you enough for being on the Human Side of Greatness today. It was my very, very pleasure to have you on the show and just give the world a glimpse of your fabulous story, being the first of many first. So thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. And this is a great discussion. I really look forward to this. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.